member of the central editorial team for the 365 app. And what I want to discuss today is how the 365 app, which is our thought leadership app here at PwC, can actually help you flesh out some of those dimensions in the PwC professional framework. And if you're anything like me, then you probably have several, if not a handful, or if you're Brendan Dewar, many snapshots to still fill out before the end of the month, let alone acknowledge or initiate or simply respond to. So with that in mind, these are probably all pretty top of mind for many of us, the 5 dimensions of the framework. But in particular, I want to discuss these 3. And I think Angela touched on this earlier, how there are some particular ones that we really strive to flesh out. And not all of our projects necessarily focus on all these elements by default. So trying to figure out how do we improve on some of these elements of these different dimensions. So business acumen, bringing business knowledge, innovation, and insight to create distinctive value. Technical capabilities, so applying a range of technical skills to deliver quality and value for both clients and PwC. And then global acumen, so operating and collaborating effectively with a mindset that transcends geographic and cultural boundaries. So the 365 app actually has all of our insights in one place, so it makes it easy for you to follow up on business issues, current events, and just altogether the thought leadership that PwC is publishing every day. And so to try this out and test your own knowledge on how much you actually know about the app and what you can actually learn to improve your own skill set, I want us all to take a quiz. So no worries in that it's anonymous, so we don't have to worry about right or wrong answers. But what I'd like to do is make it a little more interactive, and if you could all just navigate on your phones or your laptops, if you happen to bring those up with you, to this URL. So pwc.to/QZ365. So those who are also dialed in can go ahead and follow along. And no worries if you haven't got your mobile devices on you. We could just follow along on screen as well. And I'll actually navigate to this URL along with you guys. So no need for a show of hands or out loud responses, but if we could all just fill in the response on your own, on your device, if you've got it. And for those of us who have gone fully Google, you might recognize this as a Google Forms survey. All right, so everyone good to go, or? Oh, I'll hold up. Oh yeah, it's pwc.to/QZ365. Give everyone a minute to make sure it's loaded up. Again, pwc.to/QZ365. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and question 1. So related to business acumen, true or false, over 50% of self-made billionaires worked in a large company before leaving to start their own industries. Give everyone a moment to input their answers if they're on their own device. And move on to the next one. And again, all this content comes straight from 365 and the insights within it. So related to global acumen, what's not one of the 5 global megatrends? Is it rapid urbanization, demographic changes, the proliferation of social networks, resource scarcity and climate change, or shifts in economic power? Which is not one of the 5? Go ahead and put your answer in if you're on your device, and we'll move on to the next. So related to technical capabilities, of the US CEOs who told us they have a diversity strategy, what percentage said they see diversity bringing them stronger business performance? Is it 41%, 74%, 29%, or 87%? So US CEOs those with the diversity strategy, how many of them see stronger business? And finally, related to both business acumen and technical capabilities, what's the more common use for robots, according to US manufacturers? Assembly or performing dangerous tasks? What is the more common usage for robotics, according to US manufacturers? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and submit, and then we'll be able to see everyone's live responses. Again, all anonymous, just to see how we did on these 4 different questions. Okay, so question 1, for the true or false of whether over 50% of self-made billionaires worked in a large company before leaving to start their own business, this is actually true. And the real statistic is 66%. So a full 66% of self-made billionaires started in a large company, much like many of us here. So congrats. Step 1 achieved, you could say. And so the great part about this insight is this comes straight from our book, which you might be aware of, was authored by 2 PwC partners. So it's called The Self-Made Billionaire Effect. And this is a piece of thought leadership that, as you can imagine, a very big deal for us here, and ties into a lot of different topics that many of us supporting the different practices would be familiar with. So everything from talent issues to entrepreneurship to organizational design, it hits on a lot of different elements. And if you don't have time to read the full book, then you can just go to the 365 app and read an excerpt in our 10 minutes on the self-made billionaire effect. So pretty diverse range of responses there, but good to know for the future. Okay, so for global acumen, what's not one of the 5 global megatrends? Looks like a good majority of us got it correct with the proliferation of social networks. So in fact, this might fall under the umbrella of what is the actual 5th global megatrend, which is technological advancements. So again, like we were referring to earlier, global acumen is one of those areas that a lot of us kind of struggle with trying to pin down if we're not working on projects that deal with a number of global team members, or we're not necessarily working on publications, for example, that span the globe. How do we hit on that dimension? And I think just being up to current events is one of those ways, and having a bigger awareness of the world around you. And just by going in the app, you can learn a lot about issues like the global megatrends. And that's one of those big topics that every single firm in the PwC network is talking about. Learning about with their clients is a core part of the conversations happening around you. So one opportunity to learn a lot more with a global mindset. So as for technical capabilities, of the US CEOs who said they have a diversity strategy, how many of them see stronger business performance? So we've got a diverse range of responses here from the audience, which is pretty telling. But believe it or not, and it looks like a lot of us do believe it, the 87% is the actual response. So almost 90% of US CEOs who have a diversity strategy see that bringing them stronger business performance. So very telling stat, and very much supports a lot of the diversity initiatives that PwC does. But again, tying to technical capabilities here. So this stat comes straight from our 2015 US CEO survey, which just came out in January. And if you have the knowledge around any statistic that comes from the survey, you will see it echoed throughout the year. It's one of those flagship pieces of thought leadership that makes appearances in many conference calls, many meetings, many publications you'll see over and over again. So if you have that knowledge and you're able to speak to it, it really does make a difference in how you're perceived. It really helps build up your brand and shows that you have the technical savvy to speak to some of those very big issues. And for the final question, so what's the most common use for robots, according to US manufacturers we surveyed? And in fact, it looks like a majority of people said assembly, and they are dead on. So performing dangerous tasks is not yet one of the main roles for robots when it comes to manufacturers. So not quite yet the superheroes we see them portrayed as in the media all the time, but perhaps we're on our way. So this was a really interesting report to me. This came from a report that came out last year called The New Hire, and it was about how robots are increasingly making appearances in factories and warehouses and other elements of manufacturers. And I think this is really interesting and very telling as to what purpose the 365 app can serve, because you really get to see the full breadth of publications we put out every year, and you're able to share that thought leadership, which is one of those aspects of technical capabilities I know that gives a lot of people pause. How am I expected to create and share thought leadership if I'm not necessarily dealing with it every day the way I am in my group? But what's great about the 365 app is it enables you to easily share with your network. So not only are you able to see all this thought leadership we're producing, but you're also able to easily either share it by email, through LinkedIn, through Twitter, or even Facebook. And I think a lot of people's initial instincts are to assume, I can't really see myself sharing this piece on derivatives reform for non-financial services with my Facebook friends. And that's up to you. But I think what I've really noticed is that every time I log into LinkedIn and I see my partner, I see the partners I'm working with, I see my colleagues sharing these kinds of insights every day, it really does help to build your personal brand. So I think we also kind of assume that PwC is putting out a lot of mundane, dry topics that are only interesting if you're a client in that technical area. But in fact, this robots report is a really great example to show that there are fascinating pieces we have out there, and not all of us are always aware of it. So this piece on robotics, although I don't support the manufacturing industry or the industrial products service, I did read this report and I really found it intriguing. And along those same lines, one of the most informative and interesting reports I've ever read on Bitcoin is in 365. There's this amazing video that Entertainment and Media put out recently on how Netflix is disrupting the entire way we consume media, and televisions are now, almost a thing of the past. So it's incredible to see how much you can actually learn and how much of it you might actually want to share with your networks. And keeping that in mind, it not only builds up your business acumen, but also your technical capabilities and helps build your network as well. So to close us out, which I think I'm just about up on time, I would like to hear from anyone who might have any testimonials to share around how they've used 365 either personally or professionally, or if they've gotten any of their own anecdotes just around the people they've worked with, the partners they serve. Is there anything that you would like to share about how 365 has benefited you, if you've got it already? Yeah, go ahead.
I think you hit on some great points earlier, and I'll just reinforce some of them. So from my standpoint, I lead the marketing New York Metro, so we're always looking for opportunities where we can get 365 in front of our clients. So, one thing that we're focused in on is we look at all the client marketing events, and we try to come up with creative ways to integrate 365 into that meeting roundtable. So Angela's group has a great set of collateral that we can bring and either pass out or send electronically to really get our clients on board with 365, because it's definitely a competitive advantage from PwC's perspective and from our client's perspective. There's a ton of information in there, and I definitely encourage you guys to get in there and get comfortable with it. So that's more on the marketing end. From my personal perspective, I have it on my iPhone, the app, and I got to tell you, it's simple to navigate around. It takes about 10 seconds to set up a profile. You can set up any by industry. So if you have particular interests in entertainment, media, and communications, or health, the health institute, whatever it is, you can set it up by priority, and all the thought leadership within that industry or sector comes right out in a very simple form, and you can click it on. What I love also is it's not just written. There's tons of video in there, which makes it very entertaining. I back and forth on the train every day, so I can just spend, and the videos are very quick, concise, 2 minutes. but they're very insightful. And, you know, I just think wherever you guys reside, whatever line of service or practice area, you guys have an opportunity to promote that practice area. And to Angela's earlier point, you don't have to be a subject matter expert. I mean, some of the stuff that I send out to my, share on LinkedIn, there's no way I would ever be able to write some of that incredible thought leadership, but promoting the practice in some way. So I would think about where you guys reside within your lines or your practice areas or industries and the partners that you work for, and think about, how can I sort of bring value to the practice from this perspective? And I can tell you, those partners look at that and they say, wow, these guys are on top of it. This is a brand new piece of thought leadership in the practice, and these guys are out there posting it on their LinkedIn and or whatever the social media channel is. And those are multipliers. When you post something on LinkedIn and you've got 500 connections, it's incredible how quickly, that thought leadership that you shared is now going, basically viral. And so there's just some thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. No, and I've seen that a lot too, even when I just look at the Twitter feed, which moves so quickly, but you really notice the impact of us at PwC sharing insights and adding our own commentary, and it really makes you stand out as someone who is on top of things and really is following what PwC is publishing, which I think speaks loudly to the people who are, for example, seeing your work, reviewing your snapshots, etc. Any other testimonials from anyone? And I know I've actually got a testimonial from Mary Murphy, who I don't know if you're in the house today, Mary, but I know she said that in particular for her role at events at PwC, that integrating awareness of the app into our client-facing events allows us to strengthen relationships between our partners and clients by bringing insights to them in a very easy way. And she said that personally as well, 365 offers her the opportunity to remain current on developments within our clients' industries and stay on top of trends on a wide range of subjects. So thank you, Mary, for submitting that testimonial as well. Any last thoughts on the app? And if not, I do have a series of postcards to pass out to everyone who's live in the audience today, and it gives you detailed instructions on how to get the app if you have iPhone or iPad. I'm so sorry for those with Android, BlackBerry, or Windows Phone if they're out there as well. An Android version is on the way, I believe, later this year, but in the meantime, if you haven't got an iPad or iPhone device, then feel free to pass these cards on to someone else who might not have the